cross-faction gameplay is here. So you can play with your friends in the opposite faction, including instanced content. That's pretty big. That's just not a thing we've had. And
That's literally new.
like what is... Yeah. And I suppose think about the implications here. Because honestly, I've kind of forgotten some of the specifics. Whenever you go to the pre-made group finder, is that now cross-faction?
It is cross-faction, if I remember correctly. It is cross-faction for groups that are like made and opt-in. So if you're making a party for a Mythic Plus dungeon, you can go, I'll accept other faction members, and they can sign up.
So then for regular players looking at it, we see everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's like... Well, think how many more groups you can apply to and be declined for at once.
Honestly, considering my... So for Mythic Plus, it's probably not going to be... It's going to be a pretty huge deal, not for DPS, because you get declined everywhere anyway. But to me, considering like the times I actually want to pug a raid, that's usually about 11 p.m. on a Saturday night when my brain's just not working anymore.
Yeah.
And I've been doing something else all day. And that's a time when, especially on Ravencrest Alliance, 11 p.m. is like, there's not going to be that many people doing like a normal raid or heroic raid pugging it. That'll be like starting fresh at that time. But obviously no Ravencrest Alliance enough server, but at the same time, if I can just go and see more groups, then that solves the problem of literally player population problem.
Yeah, because
like, which is getting fairly major.
Stuff is regional.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. Now in match-made stuff,
it is only for opt-in scenarios. So anything match-made will not be cross-faction because they want to keep it so you don't, you're like, say you're Alliance, you don't just see a bunch of Horde in every group you go into. It's kind of like...
Though that could be really nice for... Well, actually, you know what? Ever since watching the Defunct Land video on Fast Passes, I was going to say that would be great for queue times. But after seeing that video and thinking about how queues work, I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yep, absolutely.
Maybe that's it. You can queue up for Mythic Plus with a Fast Pass, only $4.99.
What wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, you can queue up for Mythic Plus with a Fast Pass. It's called Play Tank.
Oh yeah, shit.
It's called Play Tank.
So look, cross-faction gameplay, I think it's pretty big. I don't think it really impacts me or you too much because we play with people, but for a lot of people... Actually, you know what? This lets me resurrect characters that are in the... Maybe you have this as well. You have characters that are kind of like in the gameplay graveyard because now your guild has... I mean, for most of my characters are on Horde.
Yeah.
Well, actually, originally they were all Alliance. Then they were all Horde. That was a bit painful on the old wallet. And I completely refuse to faction and realm transfer all of them. So now instead of those characters, which for me are mostly Legion characters, instead of them just being in the graveyard, like now, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, if you wanted to level them up and get them some gear, then you wanted to sub in for a week, you would just say in the guild Discord, because no one talks in guild chat anymore or anywhere. Well, I mean, people certainly do, but for us, it's Discord based. So you just go, oh yeah, I'll come on this, and you just give its name, and then it doesn't matter that it's Horde, it's just Alliance. I think that fits people a little bit overall, honestly. I think that fits the modern game more. There's a bit in the stream later on where we'll address someone's complaint about it from a more holistic perspective than just instance gameplay, because there definitely are stuff, like there are definitely concerns there, for sure. But it's definitely like just going to be, because I mean, I do play with people, but a lot of the time I pug because I play at stupid times, and also just like weirdly for no reason just want to see what pugging's like. Never a good idea, honestly, in my experience so far. But it's more people to play with means less time waiting to get into groups, less time being declined from thing groups. Although they might need to change it from, is it 5 applications you're allowed to have up at once? When you're looking for any Mythic Plus, because you're a DPS and you don't have a high Mythic Plus score, you need to maybe get like 20 applications at once to get anywhere fast. But yeah, no.
I just wish they would run an experiment of using the FF, like if you're eligible, you get in.
I would love that.
Manual decline.
That'd be a major problem because, well, that's the thing, right?
Comps.
Well, so
it's part of it.
Well, that's the thing in FF. It doesn't matter because no, it doesn't not matter. Like it matters, but you can select what you want. So it's a case of you need someone with hero. Then in that equation equivalent in FF, you would then say, okay, well then I want probably a bit difficult move because BM Hunter, but I want a mage or a shaman or a BM Hunter. You could conceivably do that.
Yeah, okay,
and
fair.
then they would show up, and that would be fine. That would be everyone else would be a bit scuffed, but that would keep the comp stuff kind of there.
Yeah, you would just have to have a good setup that the party leader could make. That's interesting. Next then, a bit of a look at cross-faction instances that Blizzard posted so we can actually understand how this new system works in the game. So, to invite players from the opposite faction to a party, you must have a battle tag or real ID friendship, or be a member of a cross-faction WoW community. Communities! Remember those? Because the communities can now be cross-faction. So that's how the invites work.
Interesting. I thought that would just straight up be you can invite based on name. Oh no, I suppose because you can't invite based on name because that uses the in-game search function, which is broken and wrong. So, yeah, interesting.
Now you do have the ability to find pre-made groups in the group finder for dungeons, raids, rated PvP content, and tour guest, but the group leader is allowed to restrict to same faction applicants if they want. And once in a party, if you're in the opposite faction, you'll actually remain unfriendly while outside of instances. So you can talk through, chat in an instance, but outside of that, your /say, I think is still going to be...
No, it says there. Within proximity, you can say and yell.
Oh, proximity, yeah.
Which is interesting that it's kind of doing that. Auto-translate, I guess. It's strange.
I think they just want to do they want to do the best job of this being as seamless as possible, right? So, it's there, but it doesn't really impact the world humongously.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you enter a dungeon raid, whatever instance content, all members will be friendly and able to assist each other in combat, trade loot, earn shared achievements, and otherwise fully engage the same way members of the same faction do.
Indeed.
So there's that. Now, for guilds are still single faction. Random match-made stuff is still same faction. Yeah. But Mr. GM found a now-fixed bug that allowed him to make a cross-faction guild. So we can't say that it's just a simple flick a switch and it will work.
No.
But that he was able to get a bug to make it work does make you think that while it's, by no means is game ready, like it is a thing they could do.
Yeah, so the whole thing there is that was that's a technical possibility based on a bug. It shows that the base functionality of players in guild doesn't matter. The faction stuff doesn't matter. But obviously, considering how old World of Warcraft is and how much stuff we had to go through to get bigger backpacks and how that seemingly destabilized servers for a while, there's just that case of bug, yes, technically great, doesn't mean this isn't going to... It doesn't mean it's literally possible. It means that you can make it happen, but can you make it happen and then iron out all the bugs is a completely different question. Because that's the same case as if the game's so strange that you can't get... I know this is technically apples to oranges, but if your game's kind of technically so busted that you can't make dynamic terrain in an arena work reliably, then how are you going to have a bug actually just be usable with a whole bunch of extra data validation across all this stuff? Because then you have, in this example, you would have this case of if these two guild members met each other out in the world, they'd be hostile to each other. And that would just be kind of weird and not make any sense to players, in a way.
Yeah. So there's weirdness, but perhaps eventually some hope. There is another restriction then, just for some of the legacy instances where it makes sense, because these have, always been a bit weird in the faction lines.
Yeah.
So Siege of Borealis, Jazara Lore, Dark Maul Citadel, which is the Exiles Reach dungeon, VOA, Trial of the Crusader, Trial of the Champion, Ice Crown, and Baradin Holt. So you cannot do these.
Yep, game will break,
do
I'm
the
sure.
Others, though.
It's weird how it's weird how that'll break, because to me I'm just thinking, well, surely you decide which version of the instance that happens, whenever you go in. So a player zones in and it goes, is this the Alliance version or the Horde version? And loads that. Because that's what you would imagine. So I wonder it can't just pick the party leaders faction and say, okay, we'll do that. But that maybe gets weird whenever it comes to ICC, where it's okay, well, does the Alliance and Horde ICC technically have a different lockout? or technically have somewhat weird differences. It means if you do it twice, it goes weird. I don't know. I guess that's why they're just like, no, you're not allowed to do this.
Yeah. Ain't worth the headache.